Hey everyone, welcome to the open question. Picture this. You're reading an ancient scroll, half faded, and you spot a curious name, Enoch. It appears so quickly you almost miss it, yet something about it sparks your imagination. Enoch is a figure who shows up in a few ancient narratives, then seems to vanish without a trace. There's a sense that he is more than just a name on a page. There's an entire world of ideas tied to him, hidden under layers of stories and legends that reach back thousands of years. It's tempting to dismiss Enoch as a minor character, especially when there are so many bigger stories in these old texts. There's Adam and Eve, the flood tale, battles, prophets, kings, all the usual suspects of grand mythology. Enoch is easy to overlook, just a mysterious individual who appears in a short genealogy, then disappears. But that brief mention has inspired entire books, elaborate traditions, and countless interpretations. It's like stumbling on a side character in a long-running TV series who somehow ends up having the most enthralling spin-off. His name shows up in the Book of Genesis, typically referred to as the seventh generation from Adam. While the standard translation says he walked with God, some older traditions describe that he ascended into the heavens, never to experience death like the rest of humanity. This idea of a person who avoids death and gains secret knowledge resonates in myths from different cultures. It's a bit like discovering an ancient superhero who's overshadowed by bigger names, yet behind the scenes, he's central to important plot points. One of the most fascinating details is that Enoch's lifespan is said to be 365 years. That number instantly brings to mind the solar year, hinting at some intentional design. Scholars have pointed out that Enoch's 365 years might symbolize a connection to a solar calendar system. In ancient societies, calendars were more than a way to track days. They were tied to agriculture, religious festivals, and even royal propaganda. If you wanted your story to stand out, tying it to the sun's cycle would lend it real cosmic significance. Ancient writers often borrowed themes or numbers from older cultures, especially from the Mesopotamian region, places like Sumer, Babylon, and Assyria. These regions had vast libraries of clay tablets containing myths about giant floods, divine beings, and humans receiving hidden knowledge. Through trade, conquest, and cultural exchange, different groups would absorb, adapt, and retell these tales. Just like how a blockbuster movie might inspire countless spin-offs and new storylines, these ancient myths were reworked by scribes over and over. One important parallel is the tale of a figure named Adapa in Mesopotamia. He was a wise man or priest who broke the wings of a supernatural wind and then got summoned to heaven. It's said he was offered food or water that could grant him eternal life, but he refused to partake, due to what turned out to be misleading instructions from his own patron god. The result was that Adapa returned to Earth with great knowledge but lost out on immortality. This story has echoes in the account of Enoch, who, in some traditions, does the opposite. He actually gains immortality by being taken by the divine realm. It's as if these Mesopotamian ideas about special knowledge and contact with higher powers were adapted into new forms. Another intriguing angle is how scribal traditions worked in ancient times. Professional scribes held incredible power because they could read, write, and preserve records. Kings, temples, and entire communities depended on them to document everything from legal codes to sacred myths. The knowledge these scribes transmitted sometimes included astronomy, incantations, and healing rituals. They might have borrowed or reinterpreted myths from older cultures to build narratives that fit a new context. Enoch could be an example of how scribes wove local traditions with older stories about divine-human interaction. If you imagine life in the ancient world, you can see why people wanted stories of hidden knowledge descending from the sky. So much was unexplained: disease, natural disasters, the cycles of the sun and moon. Yet communities needed hope, order, and answers. Figures like Enoch, Adapa, or even Greek analogues like Prometheus share a common pattern. They mediate between a higher realm and everyday humanity. They often bring something essential to human civilization. This might be fire, forbidden secrets, or advanced knowledge about how the cosmos works. In many cases, they pay a price or cause big shifts in how humans relate to the divine. The popularity of Enoch in certain ancient Jewish circles is evident in the collection of texts known as the Enochic literature. Although most branches of Christianity and Judaism do not include these texts in their official scriptures, they were immensely popular among groups that left behind the Dead Sea Scrolls. Scholars who study this era have found more copies of Enochic material than of many other well-known biblical books. That suggests Enoch's story was especially significant for those communities. Some researchers even speculate that there were competing priestly groups, one that exalted Enoch and another that exalted Moses. While this might sound like a historical thriller plot, it highlights how crucial Enoch was to some ancient believers. The Enochic texts expand on the idea that Enoch traveled through the heavens, spoke with angels, and recorded sacred knowledge. There are also stories of fallen angels, beings who were once in the divine council but came down and taught humans various arts and sciences, leading to corruption. These ideas about rebellious divine beings creating giants or monstrous offspring resonate with older myths across Mesopotamia, Greece, and beyond. It's like different cultures kept returning to the theme of cosmic order being disrupted when the lines between heaven and earth blur. Real-life evidence of these exchanges appears in archaeological finds. Excavations have turned up thousands of cuneiform tablets in ancient Mesopotamia, preserving myths that directly predate many biblical stories. Through translation and analysis, experts can trace common motifs, like a catastrophic flood or a legendary king who ascends to heaven in search of immortality. There are cylinder seals from as far back as the Akkadian Empire, showing figures who fly on eagles or wear fish-like garments as symbols of hidden wisdom. The scribes who composed or copied the Enochic texts could very well have been aware of these older stories, and they reshaped them into a narrative that fit their own cultural and religious framework. In modern times, the academic study of Enoch gained serious momentum when scholars uncovered texts in Ethiopia. The Ethiopian Orthodox Church has long considered the Book of Enoch canonical, preserving it in the Ge'ez language. For centuries, many Western scholars didn't even know these writings existed. Then, travelers and missionaries brought manuscripts back to Europe in the 18th and 19th centuries, sparking a wave of fascination and debate. Once researchers saw the overlap between these Ethiopian manuscripts and fragments found among the Dead Sea Scrolls, it became clear that the figure of Enoch was much more central to certain ancient communities than previously understood. One way to look at Enoch's story, from a broader viewpoint, is that it captures the human desire to find meaning in a vast and mysterious universe. Because we live in a world where so much is unknown, stories of someone bridging the gap between mortal and cosmic realms tap directly into our collective imagination. They comfort us, they challenge us, and they might even encourage us to question the boundaries of what is possible. In a setting where daily life was precarious, where drought or disease could strike at any moment, the idea of a human being who could communicate with higher powers was very attractive. There are real-world parallels whenever we see knowledge as a form of power. Today, think about how scientific breakthroughs or advanced technologies can feel almost magical. In fields like biotechnology or astrophysics, the specialists who understand these areas can seem like modern-day scribes or magicians to everyone else. When new discoveries emerge, most people rely on experts to translate them into plain language. It's a pattern that mirrors how ancient scribes held the keys to secrets in clay tablets or papyrus scrolls. The stories about Enoch passing divine knowledge to humanity reflect an age-old idea. Knowledge sets one apart, and those who possess it hold a certain authority or even mystique. From a numbers standpoint, it's also worth noting how many times Enoch is referenced in ancient Jewish and Christian commentaries. Scholars have cataloged dozens upon dozens of references from the 1st century BCE all the way into late antiquity. This might not sound like a lot by modern publishing standards, but in a time when texts were copied by hand, such references indicate a figure of deep relevance. Researchers have run textual comparisons, using everything from linguistic analysis to digital databases, and keep finding new echoes or quotations from Enoch's story in other works. Public interest in Enoch tends to flare up whenever a new discovery surfaces, like additional Dead Sea Scroll fragments, or new translations from ancient languages. Sometimes sensational claims pop up, like the idea that Enoch was a time traveler or a visitor from another planet. That's probably too imaginative for most historians, but it points to how versatile and alluring this mysterious figure is. Whenever there is a gap in our understanding, people are quick to fill it with creative theories. In that sense, Enoch is a blank canvas onto which different generations can project their hopes, fears, and fascination with the unknown. All of this is to say that Enoch's origins can't be pinned on just one culture or one text. He appears at a crossroads where multiple mythic and cultural streams converge. Some threads go back to very old Mesopotamian traditions, others to the Greek world, still others to local Canaanite or Israelite beliefs. Over time, scribes and communities reworked these elements into narratives that answered their own questions about the universe and humanity's place in it. Whether it was to inspire awe, enforce moral boundaries, or explain the existence of secret cosmic knowledge, Enoch served as a potent symbol. His modest mention in Genesis might make him look minor, but once you glimpse the bigger puzzle, fragments of Enochic lore spread across apocryphal texts, scrolls in desert caves, and hints in ancient scribal traditions, you realize there's far more to him. He stands as a testament to how a single name in an ancient manuscript can become a beacon for imagination and myth-making. The same way modern culture gets obsessed with certain characters or stories, ancient people found in Enoch a spark that made them revisit, retell, and reinterpret his narrative. And the more you look into it, the more you understand why. We don't always get neat answers about who he was supposed to be or exactly where the story first arose. Historical evidence doesn't hand us a tidy, step-by-step timeline, but the very ambiguity might be what keeps Enoch's legacy alive. There's a sense that something groundbreaking happened to him, whether it's an ascent to the heavens, a reception of forbidden wisdom, or a transformation into a being beyond death. And that event plugged straight into ancient hopes and fears about transcending the limits of ordinary life. In that sense, Enoch's origin is less about a single point in time and more about a tapestry of ideas woven together by countless scribes, priests, and visionaries. The next time you skim through old genealogies and see Enoch's name sandwiched between more famous figures, it may be worth pausing. Beneath that short mention lies a massive legacy that stretches across multiple civilizations and centuries. There's a reason Enoch keeps surfacing in myths about angels, giants, and cosmic secrets. These stories helped shape how people understood themselves and their world. They also underscore that human storytelling, even in ancient times, was interconnected on a grand scale. Cultures borrowed, adapted, and reinvented myths, each adding a new dimension or spin. In many ways, Enoch's story is a microcosm of our broader human tendency to explore beyond what we see, to speculate on the unknown. Whether we're studying quantum physics or searching for new planets, the quest to step outside our boundaries is timeless. It's not surprising that ancient myths speak of individuals who venture into unknown realms, sometimes literally ascending to the heavens. Enoch is a reminder that curiosity and the drive to learn have always been part of who we are, long before we had telescopes or space shuttles. By looking at Enoch's origin through the lens of ancient scribal traditions and comparative myth, we see how one figure can embody a wealth of human thought. He becomes a bridge between everyday life and the sublime, reflecting a universal need to believe there's more to existence than our day-to-day concerns. Whether or not these stories are factually accurate isn't really the point for the ancient mind. They served to explain life's mysteries, to legitimize priestly or royal authority, and to satisfy our collective longing for something beyond the ordinary. And so Enoch, once a footnote in a biblical genealogy, grows into a character who stands shoulder to shoulder with legendary heroes from other cultures. His myth raises questions about humanity's relationship with higher powers, the value of hidden knowledge, and the possibility that some among us might transcend normal limits. Even if we approach these tales from a modern standpoint, where scientific inquiry has replaced many older explanations, the allure of someone bridging mortal and divine realms remains. Perhaps it's a reminder that myth-making is a deeply human activity, and that in spinning tales about figures like Enoch, we also reveal truths about our own hopes and imaginings. If his story stirs a sense of wonder, that's probably what it was meant to do from the start. And if it raises new questions about where myths come from, how they evolve, and why they endure, That might be the greatest gift Enoch has to offer. He's the mysterious figure who beckons us to look closer and to realize that even in ancient times we were never short on imagination or the urge to peer beyond the horizon. Thank you for watching. I will see you in the next one.